What's up, my beautiful weirdos, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Tawny Michelle, and we are not all love, light, twin flames, and unicorns over here, so please keep that in mind. Welcome to today's video. So for today, I wanted to talk further about the Saturn and Uranus square that is coming exact on the 17th. This has been building up for months now, though, and I talked a lot about it already in my Great Conjunction video and also my January plus 2021 themes video. So if you haven't seen those, go check those out. I will link those above and down below so you can check those out because I went into a lot of detail. But specifically in this video, I want to talk about the Saturn and Uranus square that's happening. And also, I'm also working on a video for predictions using the US's birth chart for the year of 2021 and with specific timeframes and dates and periods that we should be looking out for those of us that live in the US, because I know a lot of people requested for me to do that. So anyways, let's get into it. Okay, so as you can see here, we have Saturn at 7 degrees Aquarius, and we have Uranus at 7 degrees Taurus. And so this creates a square because it is a 90-degree angle, and because Taurus and Aquarius are both fixed signs, so any signs that are of the same modality, cardinal, fixed, or mutable, are squaring each other. So that's a good way to remember, like, how to know if something's going to be squaring. Saturn is at 7 degrees Aquarius. So what is Saturn, right? Saturn, who I call Big Daddy Saturn, is about restrictions and boundaries. It is where we have authority, where we have a sense of discipline, right? It is cold and distant, right? Especially in Aquarius, which is in the middle of winter in the northern hemisphere, right? It is cold, airy, and fixed. And so it's like cold, frosty air. That is not moving because it's fixed, or at least keeping the momentum going in some way is another way that you can think of fixed signs. Saturn is at home in Aquarius because Saturn traditionally rules Aquarius, and Aquarius is a sign that is about progression, like I've talked about previously, unconventionality, individuality, but also where the individual fits into the greater whole. It is somewhat ethereal, but also human at the same time, the collective or humanity, the nature of humanity. So Aquarius, being a fixed air sign, also rules things like science and technology. It also rules social change and social progression, evolution. Aquarius is also more rational and more logical, and it is that way because it is an air sign, so it has the ability to emotionally detach to see the bigger picture. And what's also interesting is that we haven't had this much Aquarian energy, this many planets in the sign of Aquarius since the early 1960s. So, and I think there's a lot of things that were going on then that we're seeing now, especially with like civil rights and civil unrest and the people versus the people in power, and all of these different kind of dynamics that we're seeing with this Aquarian energy that is very much about progression and the people, the ordinary person, and how the ordinary person can find its place in the collective and in some kind of group or some kind of movement, etc. So this is very, very much Aquarian type of energy. Because it's Saturn ruled, there also is somewhat of a outcast type of energy to Aquarius, or a distance there, a separation, a restriction there. So that's something very interesting as well. But another thing to remember with Saturn in Aquarius is that Saturn also rules Capricorn. So whatever is in Capricorn is, any planets in Capricorn are being basically hosted by Saturn, and any planets in Capricorn right now are going to be basically working with Saturn. And what do we see in Capricorn? Pluto. And this is very important because, like I'm going to talk about in my video that I'm going to be having about, the US and reading the US's birth chart in relation to 2021 and 2021 predictions, Pluto is coming back to the same place that it was in the US's birth chart, right? So we are going to see massive transformation and Plutonian theme when it comes to, you know, unrest and liberation, etc. And that's where, you know, Uranus is coming in as well, and Taurus squaring Saturn, which I'm going to get to in a minute. Back to Saturn. So Saturn in Aquarius is really about this authority, this restriction, this distance, this heaviness being placed in Aquarius-like themes, like we've already been seeing. So, you know, communication and connection with other people. You know, Saturn is rules and boundaries, and, you know, enforcing those rules and boundaries and restrictions. So we're also seeing this with like social media and censorship and all of these different types of things. No matter what side of the coin you're on, it's happening. You know what I mean? Saturn is definitely kind of laying down the hammer here with Aquarian-like themes and making things very, very authoritarian, you know, rules and censorship, very Saturn in Aquarius. Now, the interesting thing about this, though, which is what this video is about, is we have Uranus squaring Saturn. And oh, by the way, on the day, February 17th, that this square becomes exact, the moon is going to be going through Taurus and will conjunct Uranus at some point. So this is actually almost the exact square here. So let's back up a little bit. So we have Saturn at 7. Okay, there we go. So here's the exact square. So it's going to happen around 3 p.m. On Wednesday, February 17th. Now, remember that these planets are very, very slow moving. So you may not feel, you know, yes, there could be a possibility that something happens on this day. But it's more a possibility of like a buildup that you're going to feel to this day. And this is just one of the first of 3 squares that we're going to have in the year of 2021. Okay, so let me just look back here to get the exact date so I can give them to you, because we have one in summer and one in winter. The first one is February 17th, the next one is in June, on June 14th, and the next one is in December, on December 27th, and I do believe they're going to come pretty close again in October, so we're likely going to be noticing themes. But this is the beginning to some kind of story that is actually ending here, because this is the 3rd quarter square to this particular Saturn-Uranus story. They met back in the 80s at one point and were conjunct. And then ever since then, they've been going through this cycle of the 1st quarter square, which was in the, I want to say, the early 2000s. They were actually switched. Saturn was in Taurus, Uranus was in Aquarius. And then they had the opposition, can't quite remember when that was. And then this is the 3rd quarter square before they conjunct again, which I believe happens, I want to say, in Cancer. In years from now. So, but basically, Saturn and Uranus are known for many different points in history that were very, very crucial, basically for evolution and progressing our current system. So Saturn is the structure, it is the foundation of things, right? It is the big buildings, it is the way things are kind of ran or going, right? And Uranus is freedom and liberation and breaking free and awakening, right? And awakening to these possibly oppressive systems or old ways of doing things or structured. But the problem is that Saturn kind of has the upper hand here over Uranus, because Saturn is in its home sign and has a ton of other planets with it for this square. Not to mention Jupiter is there as well, expanding kind of Saturn's wrath and making it very big and on a large scale. So basically, you know, Uranus is kind of getting overpowered by Saturn. So the freedom, the liberation, the eccentricity, and the fight for the individual, for the you know, because Uranus also rules independence. You know, the fight for independence and freedom is kind of overruled by Saturn, overpowered by Saturn and Saturn's kind of harsh, you know, harsh, dry edges, you could say. So that's kind of one way that you can think about it, basically. But another thing with Uranus and Saturn with this square is it's forcing us to find a way to work this out, and not only in the world but in our personal lives, right? Saturn, like I said, is restriction and limitation and boundaries and authority, and Uranus is pretty opposite of that. It is freedom and liberation and awakening and independence, you know, and doing something eccentric and exciting and random and unpredictable. Uranus is also very scientific, you know, and it's in the sign of Taurus, which is material, physical, earthly pleasures. So, and I brought this up in my Great Conjunction video, but it is very much about our land, our industries, our resources, our food, our farmers, you know what I mean? All of these different Taurian things, also where we find pleasure and beauty in our earth, in our earthly realm. So, I mean, it can rule anything from, you know, farmers and industries and food markets and et cetera, to shops and, you know, where we spend money and resources and et cetera. And this is why, you know, things are expanding online, and online businesses are becoming such a thing with everything going on. And there's tons of restriction against independent businesses, right? But the thing is that Uranus is in Taurus, which is Venus ruled. And so if anything, it's looking to find a way to innovate and progress and liberate and awaken in a more in a way that's more harmonious, in a way that's more pleasurable, in a way that's more nurturing and soft and beautiful, while Saturn is in cold, kind of airy, distant, aloof Aquarius that is very scientific minded and kind of all about the numbers and the facts, but also very much about the people as well. This energy basically calls for mass innovation, not only on a collective scale, but on a personal scale in your own life. In your own life, something has felt heavy, something has felt restrictive or burdensome, you know, something has felt like a lot of work lately ever since Saturn moved into Aquarius. And so with Uranus here, Uranus wants to give us a new way of doing it, or a new perspective, or to liberate us from these challenges or these burdensome ways of doing things, or these oppressive systems and regulations and structures, etc. But Saturn kind of overpowers it. And so the best way to kind of find a way, you know, the best kind of innovative way to find a way to deal with these two energies in your personal life, not only in your personal life, but also just in the collective in general, no matter what's going on in the world, is to find a way to somehow combine them. You know your limits, know what you're powerless over, know your boundaries, but also find a way to make it new, to make it fresh, to make it exciting. You basically want to find a way to use and utilize these rules, you know, regulations, boundaries, restrictions, you know, these kind of old ways of doing things, or progress the old ways of doing things in some type of way. And this is what's going to really help you with this energy. This is the perfect time to change your perception on something that has already happened, or something that has been kind of forcing you to stay stuck in some way, something that has been holding you back. With this kind of energy, we're able to change our perception and look at things in a different way, in a new way, in a more exciting way. If we can do that, then we can deal with these two really tense, dense, and heavy energies. And another major thing that we are really seeing and going to keep seeing, I think, with this transit, with this square of Saturn and Uranus, is this disruption to the status quo, right? You know, Saturn in Aquarius wants everybody to kind of stay in line and follow suit, But Aquarius is also very individual and wants to express itself, and Uranus and Taurus wants to express itself as well, you know, wants to be independent and not have other people or other systems of power or whatever controlling it in some way. It wants to have the freedom to be able to march to the beat of its own drum. And so throughout history, we've seen with this transit radical changes, a time of civil unrest, a time of major changes being made to the current system. But the problem here with this particular transit is, like I said, Saturn is the one that's kind of in charge here. So Saturn is kind of putting up a wall, so any kind of disruption or backlash that's coming in from Uranus is going to kind of be stomped out and is going to be made to look like unruly or rebellion, or, you know, it's not true, or it's wild, etc., while Saturn stays in control. And you have to remember, in Saturn's other sign where it rules, Capricorn, there is Pluto, which is all about control and power, and in Capricorn, the sign of the people in power, right? So there is, like I said in my Great Conjunction video from months ago, you know, from 2019 or 2020 still, we're going to see massive systems of power, or people in power, or the structures in power try to kind of fit in with the people, or try to somehow control the people or control the narrative of the people to make them think that they're for the people, right? When really, I believe with Pluto and Capricorn, this is all, it's some kind of almost strategy, because Pluto is very resourceful. Pluto is pretty dark, you know, controlling, and what's done in the dark kind of energy, you know, all about power and control through very intense and extreme means. And so, but with Pluto and Capricorn, that is crumbling, but it's going to take some time as it's going, as like I said, the US is going through its Pluto return. Another way that we can see this square kind of playing out is kind of chaos in our own conscience. Like, are we doing the right thing? Are we really on board with what's going on? Are we just following the crowd, or are we staying true to who we are? With Saturn, there's such a pressure. With Saturn in Aquarius, there's such a pressure to fit in, right? With the Aquarian energy ruling the masses, to fit in, because that's what seems like the cool thing to do, or the trendy thing to do. North Node in Gemini, all about trends, right? But with Uranus and Taurus, it's like, you know, we're finding ways, we have to find innovative and creative ways to express our authentic selves, to express our authentic nature. And even if it goes against the, crowd, but then if you do that, somehow you're censored, or you are blocked, or separated, or isolated, etc. So this is a time where you have to get innovative. It's kind of forcing us to get creative, to get innovative, to find a different strategy or a different way to express who we really are, and our own values, with Uranus being in Taurus, our own values, to get our resources in a creative and unique and innovative way, and to express what we have to offer and our independence in a different type of way than we normally would with this Saturn in Uranus square. So this is what you're going to see throughout the year. Every time these themes come up, you're going to see some kind of disruption, some kind of, you know, as the square is building throughout the year, some kind of civil unrest, some kind of rebellion, some kind of disruption to the status quo, some kind of outsider or unruly people that are outsiders to the status quo trying to stand up but getting shut down over and over and over again. Tech and science and media and all of these technological and scientific types of themes that Aquarius rules, and that, you know, Saturn in Aquarius is kind of, you know, ruling as well, is going to keep becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and like I said in my Great Conjunction video, may become even godlike, may be the new power at the top. And this is happening I personally think, from an intuitive perspective and an astrological perspective, to really show people what's not working, right? Basically, to really show people what's not working, because it's preparing us for the things that are coming, which I think are going to lead to more people coming together, more humanness, and less kind of artificial humanness, you could say. And I'm not necessarily talking about artificial intelligence, although I think that is one of the themes that we could definitely see with all of this Aquarian energy. But I mean, like, you know, how the ways that we connect, and how life has been for humans for so long, you know, and I was just talking about this on my Patreon. When you think of life, at least for me, I don't think of you know, working my ass off my whole life just to survive, right? Like, what kind of life is that? And yeah, maybe some people are here to experience that. You could get real philosophical, and I get that. But personally, I think that life is about so much more. And I think that Uranus and Taurus is teaching that lesson. But I think that this particular square with Uranus and Saturn is really showing us what is no longer working, and possibly what is still working, you know, because this is a kind of square where we could easily go crazy and be like, you know what, like, we just need to get rid of everything, you know, even the things that are working, or we could end up shutting things down, or you know, getting rid of things that were working just fine and bringing in things that don't work, you know, or continuing things that don't work. And so even in your personal lives, you feel that excitement of change is there, and that excitement of some kind of new freedom or new liberation is there. But there's also the restrictions and the kind of constant no from Saturn happening. And I think it's very interesting that topics of freedom and rights are getting brought up, which I kind of stated would, because that's a very Uranian and Saturnian kind of energy here. You know, where can our rights, or where can our freedom take us too far, and where do we need to have certain boundaries and rules? And then where can boundaries and rules and restrictions be too much and take it too far, to where we feel like we don't have any freedom? And so there's kind of this back and forth between these two planets, but Saturn being the one that is kind of the strongest right now, since it's in its home sign, that is kind of overpowering a lot of the Uranian disruption and need to change and awaken and liberate from oppressive or restrictive ways of doing things. Uranus wants to do things that are unpredictable, that are different, that are unique, that maybe have never been done before. But there's this resistance with Saturn there that is very structured and traditional and conservative, that wants to progress what's already there in Aquarius, but not necessarily do something new and different like Uranus does, right? And so there's this idea that change is happening, but is it change or is it progression, with Saturn being in Aquarius, which is a fixed air sign, which comes after Capricorn, which is basically just the progression of the Capricornian types of themes, which are structures and, you know, the powerful structures that kind of govern the world. Other things that we could see with this transit coming up around this time and throughout the year is the amount of tension, or the amount of stress, fear, pressure on the collective, or on humanity and people as a whole. And this is something that you have to watch out for. Uranus can help us get through this fear, and this is where this square is good, when you know how to work with this energy, when you know how to work through it. By facing your fears, you become liberated. By being able to find an innovative way to work with the situation that feels limiting, that feels restrictive, that feels like it's weighing you down, that feels very hard. By finding an innovative way to work through that, you then become liberated. So it's very important to try to find the balance between with fear, basically, by not, you know, it's okay to be scared, it's okay to be in fear, it's okay to want to hold on to things because that's the way it's always been done. And even if they seem new or progressive, it's still kind of the same old thing. And so, and I'm not just talking about the world, I'm talking about in your own lives, guys, too. Like in your own personal lives, you will be seeing these themes of restriction and contraction and boundaries and rules and you know, all of these things, versus doing something exciting and centric and different and unique, and, you know, freedom and awakening and all of these things. So it can be very easy to feel excited, but at the same time scared and pulled back. And we're really going through this kind of electrifying time, you know. So with Uranus, you know, if we can find an innovative way to deal with the restrictions. And for me personally, what that's looked like is walking myself into the fear and finding a way to get innovative with it, finding a way to use it to my own benefit, finding a way to, and I've talked a lot about this as well before and on my Patreon, but finding a way to liberate yourself or find some kind of freedom in the box that you may feel stuck in, or in the box that you feel stuck in. I don't know why I always do that, but so finding a way to work with that energy instead of against it, and constantly just hitting your head up against the brick wall or feeling pressured to do things that you don't want to do, you know. And that's another major theme that could come up, is a lot of pressure to do certain things that feel like they are against your own morals or your own values, or you know, your own rights even at times, you know. And this is where we really have to kind of watch what we are giving our energy to around this time, what we are believing in, because when we get wrapped up in fear and feel forced into something because of fear, we are cutting off we're too much in the Saturnian and not enough in the Uranian, where we don't have that access to higher truths, which Uranus rules. So some other ways of dealing with this energy that you may be feeling is to really continue to question everything. North Node in Gemini, Uranus and Taurus, you know, squaring Saturn, is to really question everything. Try to remain adaptable, try to remain flexible, try to not get stuck too much in it has to be this way or it has to go this way, because Saturn will bring about delays and restrictions. And you know, that kind of tension could push you to end up wanting to do something where you're not really thinking, or you know, you're rushing it, or you're just excited, or you want something new, but then there could be, you know, things that you're overlooking. And so, you know, anything new and innovating that is kind of rushed or whatever, like I've said before, we have to be kind of careful of at this time. You know, you have to find that balance between Saturn and your Uranus. You know, Saturn with knowing your boundaries, knowing your limits, and also being real about things, right? And Uranus with, you know, doing things differently and eccentrically and wanting to explore, and you know, Uranus is kind of like the mad scientist. And so these are going to be major themes that we're going to be seeing. So definitely watch for political, social unrest during these transits. Also watch for a lot of disruption of the status quo, mass movements, the rise of, you know, radical new theories, massive cultural shifts, also tons of radical mandates and, you know, rules and different policies and regulations amongst the people as well. Also, we may see major economic crashes around this time and a lot of rebellion. The real thing to question is are any new kind of structures or systems or rules, regulations, policies, mandates, or any of these things that are being put in place over this time, are they really leading to some kind of freedom? Are they really new? Is it really anything new, or is it just the excitement of it? You know, hopefully that makes sense. Another thing that I think Uranus and Taurus is really bringing up is that we are really unclear on what it is that we even want, or what it is that we even value as like a human species anymore. There is so much confusion on this, and Saturn in Aquarius is trying to like lay down the law for the people and for civilization and for the majority and the many, and to somehow bring this shit show together, but in very traditional conservative ways, and in the ways that benefits more of the people at the top than it really does anybody else. And then Uranus has us all confused about what's really even happening in real life in the physical realm because it's so airy and it's all mental and it's all social media, technology, science, you know. And so I think it's really kind of this back and forth energy of these two that will that we will be seeing kind of play out in this Saturn-Uranus story going on over the whole year of 2021. And this is also pointing to even the dangers or the control or the kind of darkness around possibly science and technology, as well as in the past when these alignments have happened. This is why it's important to do your own research, to stay open, stay adaptable, stay open-minded, because Uranus is making things unclear. The nodes in Gemini and Sagittarius are making things very unclear. And so it's important to really kind of come to your own conclusions right now. This is a time of first finding yourself and your own independence, your own autonomy, your own sovereignty, your own individuality, and then seeing where you fit into the whole and finding people that you relate with, and always keeping an open mind during this time, because things can get very overhyped with this energy that are really not what they appear to be at all. So just continue to really keep those things in mind. We could also see a lot of new science or scientific inventions coming out around these transits as well. That is basically what I have to say about this Saturn Uranus square happening on the 17th, this first one. I will try to update this as we go along throughout the year. Definitely watch out for these themes and let me know if you see any of these themes below and in your own life or in the world, because these are the major two energies and themes of those energies, the archetypes of those energies that we are going to be seeing, that are basically the ground or the foundation for 2021 this year. So thank you guys so much for watching this. If you watched it all the way through, let me know down below, and I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys in my other videos. Bye.